I really don't want to do this video. Hi guys, welcome back to Pembroke's Own and the Beyond Fiction playlist that I've started, and I'm going to have to take down a very, very dark path now. When I first started this playlist, it was to give you an insight into some incredible and inspirational people who have not only helped mould my writing style, but also shape the very fabric of the protagonist of my story. People like Raul Benavides and Carlos Hathcock, like in my first two videos, who have just done out of this world things and given my main character Ryan spirit. So when it comes to my antagonists, what sort of level do I have to look at? Pure evil. Now, for all first time and aspiring writers out there, when it comes to writing your antagonist, there should always be some kind of underlying motive. Even the most evil or vicious ones you've ever read about or watched on TV, Ramsay Bolton is a great example of this. Even he had an underlying motive and a backstory that explained why he was the way he was. But this particular piece of shit that I'm going to be talking about today, there still has been no motive just discovered about why he did the things that he did. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to give you now, the watcher, a trigger warning, because what I'm about to talk about is very, extremely unsettling. I know I don't give trigger warnings in my books, but that's because I personally feel that fiction should not have to come with a trigger warning. But the reason I'm talking about what I am today, especially for aspiring writers out there when it comes to antagonists, you're about to learn that real life is way worse than any fiction could ever be. Now, in the Beyond Fiction series, in the thumbnail and the title, I've used the nickname or chosen nickname for either of the two people that I've spoken about so far. But this man, demon, this walking vile piece of shit, that if you were to light on fire in front of me, I would not feel a flicker of emotion either way. I am not giving this person a nickname. I'm just going to tell you straight who it is. You would have already seen it, but it's Ian Watkins. For all of you who don't know, Ian Watkins was the lead singer, frontman of an emo metal band called Lost Prophets, and they actually did some songs that I used to like. But this is a case of where even someone like me cannot separate the art from the artist, because it is just so fucked up. It's also worth a small note just to point out that the rest of the band members of Lost Prophet were not complicit in what I'm about to tell you. And what I'm about to tell you might start off sounding like the standard rock star going off the rails story, but what I will drop on you halfway through this video will come out of nowhere, because that is literally how it happened to us, the fans of the rock world. This came out of nowhere. There was no hint or any suspicion for what was really happening underneath the surface of Ian Watkins' dark, fucked up, sadistic brain. As I said, you've probably heard the story a million times, a rock star with the world at his feet who went off the rails. But this is levels below that. This is 7th layer of hell shit. I feel like I've warned you enough, and I will warn you later again in some videos when I start to read out some evidence. But let's just get straight into it. Ian Watkins was born in Pontypridd, Wales. So not only was he a human piece of garbage, but he was also Welsh. And I also apologise if I somehow managed to slip in a joke anywhere in this. I'm not doing this for your viewing pleasure. I'm literally doing it just to make sure I do not go insane. Fucking hell, here we go. I'm going to cut quite quickly through this next bit because you don't really need to know the band's history. They started off with some small success with the Fake Sound of Progress, their debut album, but then they released their second album, Start Something, in 2003, and it hit the charts. Lost Prophets themselves took off. Watkins had always called himself straight edge. No drinks, no drugs, because he wanted to give the fans the best possible performance they could have. But after the release of Start Something and they started to get famous and bigger, Watkins started abusing crystal meth and cocaine. It was around this time that Watkins started to have his own private dressing room, and it has been said that he did this to keep his act away from his bandmates' eyes. But other people have theorised that the bandmates have just made this up so they could have plausible deniability into not knowing what was really going on. It's been said more than repeatedly by the bandmates that they actually had no idea what was going on. The only illegal activities that they were aware with Watkins was his drug use, and they actually threatened to kick him out of the band on more than one occasion, even trying to hold interventions for him. In early 2010, the band were touring whilst recording their fourth studio album, The Betrayal, and it was during this period that numerous shows were cancelled with absolutely no explanation given to the fans whatsoever. The truth was behind the scene that Watkins was now a full-blown addict, and he was either turning up to the shows high off of his face or not turning up at all. The The moment the drug abuse reached its crescendo with the band was in 2012, where Lost Prophets played in Cardiff, and Watkins showed up so fucked off his face that he could barely move or walk around on stage whilst getting every lyric wrong. After the show, bass player Richardson finally got on the tour bus where Watkins was waiting. After having enough of his shit and bad performances, he gave Watkins a piece of his mind. Watkins, unfazed by his own shit performance and embarrassment to the money-paying fans, decided to give Richardson some shit back. Richardson, as he has said in interviews, lost it. He blacked out and just started laying into Watkins. It started with punches, and then it moved on to him picking up an energy drink can and smashing him in the face of it. Now, Richardson is a big lad compared to Watkins, so yeah, it was pretty one-sided. And you're going to wish that he actually finished the job then. After this, the band had all told Watkins that he needed to get his shit together. They were going to leave him alone for 2 months, and when they come back, he had better be good. Watkins checked himself into rehab. In early December of that same year, Watkins tweeted out that he was on his way to record Lost Prophets' new music video. Like everything was normal. 13 days later, Watkins was charged with 13 child sex offences, included the attempted of an 11-month-old girl. Now, I just dropped that as a bombshell because that is how it happened to us as music fans. From what we knew, there was nothing going on like that, and no one else knew. Or so we thought. This bombshell came on the music fans because, we suspected nothing. But the history is darker than that. There were warning signs, and there was even attempts to put a stop to it. The only good thing that came out of this bombshell was that it put a stop to what Watkins was doing, which would later be found out, because it is nothing short of pure demonic evil. I did say there were warning signs, just not to the fans. There were warning signs to the police, and they could have prevented a lot of what I'm about to tell you if they had listened to any one of the 6 people over the case of 4 years who came forward concerned about Watkins' sexual interest in children. Just let that sink in. It wasn't the complaints of Watkins' sexual interest that actually got him arrested, or discovered if you like. It was an unrelated drug charge where the police finally got access to his laptop. And on there, they discovered a video of Watkins having sex with his partner at the time, recorded unbeknown to her knowledge. But Watkins can be heard saying he can't wait to get her pregnant just so they can have a child to abuse. He then messaged this particular ex later on that year after they broke up, bragging about the amount of underage girls that he had had sex with. And disgusted by this, and as any normal person would, his ex went to the police where she would be ignored. Watkins knew he could get away with it because he was an on top of the world rock star, and his ex just happened to be a former sex worker, making her uncredible. He could carry on doing what he was doing, and she would never be listened to. The police had heard that Watkins had been importing drugs from the US, which is what encouraged the raid on Watkins' property. After his laptop was seized, and after the aforementioned video that I have just explained to you, a lot more was uncovered into just how demonic. I can keep repeating that word, I'm going to, because I cannot think of another word for this walking fuck stain. It is beyond comprehension of what they discovered. Watkins had not just been grooming and having sex with minors who were fans of Lost Prophets. He had also been specifically targeting young fans who were single mothers, often giving them drugs to make them more cohesive, to gain access to their infants. To give you an example into just what this piece of shit was, when the GCHQ gained access to his laptop and broke his password for his laptop was revealed. Just to give you a bit of an insight into how proud he was of everything that he was doing. The password for his laptop was IF Kids. Not the letter F, not how you spell the letter F. It's the word that I am not saying in that same sentence. That was the password to his laptop. Kids. Another recurring thing that happened when the police got access to his laptop was his use of recording underage girls without their knowledge or consent whilst having sex with them. and then urinating on them afterwards, degrading them verbally, physically, the whole time. What was a recurring theme in the digital history was his communications with two young single mothers who go by P and B. We don't know their real identities, and I'll talk about that in a second. But with P and B, he had been manipulating them into giving them access to their infants. I have in my hand here one of the communications between P and Watkins that is on the court transcript. Okay? This is a communication between Watkins and one of the mothers. I could potentially ruin your day. So if you do not want to hear this, I will count down from 3. When I count down from 3, skip 20 seconds ahead. If you do want to stay and hear this, that is your own choice, okay? So if you don't want to hear this, skip 20 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Watkins, if you belong to me, so does your baby. P, understandable, a mother-daughter slave duo worshipping you. Watkins, that's all she will know, a life of filth. Now this is the first of 2 transcripts that I will be sharing with you. The one I share later, I will do the same thing as I did for this, where I give you a chance to skip ahead. But just so you're aware, I have read some of the court documents regarding this case. These communications are literally just scraping the surface. I am not willing to talk about the actual actions. I'm not willing to do that. I am not willing to do that, okay? Fuck it, I'm going to give you the second transcript now. If you don't want to have your day ruined, skip ahead 20 seconds, because the last one I told you was horrible. This is, I'm looking at the camera right now to tell you just how bad this is. So if you don't want to hear this, when I count down from 3, skip 20 seconds ahead. 3, 2, 1. Watkins has suggested to B to prostituting their daughter out to fat old men. B then replied, she needs to know that mummy and daddy don't love her. She's only there to make us satisfied. That is fucking horrific. That is, you all know me, I say and do horrific shit all the time. I've got friends who say and do horrific shit worse than I do. And even they will say that is the most fucking disgusting thing I've ever fucking heard come from a fucking human being. Please stick around to the end of the video though, because I promise that out of all this shitness there will be at least a little bit of light. Okay? I promise. Mothers B and P got 14 and 17 years respectively, or disrespectively, whichever way you want to look at it, and their identities have been remained hidden for the benefit of their children growing up. But I personally think it's more for their own safety. As a lot of you may or may not know, nonces, child sex offenders, all those kinds of people do not fare well in prison, and rightly so. I've heard it is 10 times worse in women's prisons than it is in men's. Men's prison is bad enough, but if you're a mother or a woman and you abuse children, harm children or kill children, you go to women's prison. Yeah, so I personally think their identities have been kept secret for their own personal benefit. I need to stop talking about all this kind of stuff because it's actually making me start to get very, very angry. So Watkins was sentenced to 29 years plus 6 for probation, and he is currently in Wakefield prison serving his sentence. During the early days of his prison sentence, one of his younger victims was allowed to go and see him. I'm not sure what the correct term or program is, but a victim can go and see their offender in prison to try and get some sort of closure to find out what happened to them. So this young woman saw Watkins behind the glass and asked why he did what he did. His answer was mega lols. For all of you unfamiliar, lols is the plural version of lol. Lol is an abbreviation of the phrase laugh out loud. So why did he do this to this young girl? For lots of mega laughs. This is the same piece of shit that actually pleaded not guilty the first time round. I said I was going to try and leave this on a happy note, so here goes. Before I go any further, small disclaimer from me, I do not encourage or endorse this kind of behaviour, but I sure as shit will not shed a tear for it. As I mentioned before, being a raging kiddie fiddler in jail does not bode well for you, and on the morning of the 5th of August this year, a couple of weeks ago, Watkins was taken hostage by 3 inmates in Wakefield prison, where he was tortured, beaten and shanked over the course of 6 hours, or the better way to look at it is a quarter of a day. Once prison staff and prison security finally got to Watkins, it is said that he was in critical condition. He was then rushed to hospital where he would start to make a recovery. Now, I know some of you out there are probably right now, well, wishing that they had finished the job, but just leave it at this. Just leave it at this. Think about it. Just think about it. See the bigger picture. If he recovers, he's going back to Wakefield. Potentially with the same people that did it to him. And if not the same people, other people who share the same view. This can happen to him again and again. Of course, I do not condone or encourage these actions. Do it! But it might happen to Watkins again. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the third installment in the Beyond Fiction series that I'll be doing. And unfortunately, I can tell you that this is not the last piece of shit that I'll be talking about. When I do these videos, it's to help writers understand, particularly when I talk about the better people, the Carlos Hathcocks and the Benavidez's of this world, it's to give you an inspiration into what your protagonists do. When it comes to antagonists, there is no level that some people will stoop to. And I purely encourage a lot of you new writers out there, do not write a person like Watkins. I have mentioned that there are despicable protagonists out there in the world of fiction that have some kind of underlying cause to why they are the way they are. But to this day, Watkins has showed no remorse or guilt and even still enjoys the things that he has done. He has still said to this day he doesn't know what everyone got so worked up about. I'm not going to ask you to leave a like if you liked this video, because I'm not sure how many people would have actually liked it. I'm going to ask you to leave a like if you found it educational into the evil deeds that people can do. And also leave a like if you just appreciate what I have just put myself through, because this has been on my mind for 6 days now and I've been putting off this recording. If you're new here, please subscribe. I'm currently uploading once every 2 weeks and I do upload more uplifting stuff than this. This is just a video I had to get off of my chest and I'm finally happy that it's out of the way. But now I'm going to get onto the editing stage, which I know I'm going to despise even more. But as always, folks, love the support. Take care. Peace.